Good morning,
Meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Cemetery and Funeral Bureau Stakeholder Workshop. My name is Gina Cheverini Sanchez, and I'm the Bureau Chief. Before we begin, I would like to thank all of you who are participating in this virtual workshop, and I want to extend my appreciation for your patience in advance as we work out the ebbs and flows of a virtual workshop here. Anyone interested in participating in the meeting for public comment must join using the WebEx feature that was available on the notice on the agenda. Their microphones are automatically muted upon entering the meeting. Let's see. As the meeting progresses through the agenda, which is the regulation and application, the lines will remain on mute until you request for public comment. Once you've been unmuted by the moderator, you will then have control of muting and unmuting. We do appreciate if you aren't speaking to put yourself on mute to avoid any background noise or any feedback. So once we open it up and the discussion starts, you just type in the word comment into the chat box. You should be able to hit the little chat button in the bottom right-hand side. And that way we can kind of keep an order of who's talking. This is supposed to be an informal, open discussion. So we just want to be aware of speaking over people. Typically, we have control of the mute button at all times, but we're going to try it with everybody kind of just taking turns and listing comment in the box. Shelley will then speak to the next person in line. The approach is necessary to facilitate this meeting and to ensure each stakeholder has a chance to fully comment. Before we get started, does the moderator have any other general instructions?
So once we begin the meeting at the time where Ms. Sanchez calls for any comment, to access that Q&A box that she mentioned, you'll be looking for the question mark inside of a box on your screen. When you click on that, it will open a text panel, and that's where you will type that you would like to make a comment, and then I can open your microphone. And Gina, you're muted.
I'm trying to be responsible and mute myself. Okay, so before we get started, I'd like to introduce myself and introduce the staff from the Bureau and the department. Here from the Bureau is Cheryl Jenkins, the Program Operation Manager, who also with us is Carolina Sammons, the Bureau Legislative and Regulatory Analyst, and Mona Matthews, the Associate Management Auditor. Also with us is Sandra Patterson, the Deputy Bureau Chief. From the department, we have Christy Shields and Danielle Rogers, our Regulatory Counsel. So I thank you all for your attendance. Also, I'd like to just make a comment that our committee member, Maria Mangini, is with us today to observe. I really appreciate you being here, Maria. Thank you. If you'd like to, like we mentioned, if you'd like to make a comment, please do so in the box. Today, we're discussing a new regulatory action for licensed cemeteries, its board of trustees, or its corporate trustee, who is seeking approval to convert its endowment care fund from a net income distribution method to the unit trust distribution method, which you may also hear in this meeting referred to as the total return method. The text and the form are available on our website at cfb.ca.gov. As many are aware here, especially in this meeting, CFB previously filed a similar regulatory package with the Office of Administrative Law, or as you will hear in the meeting, OAL. This package received numerous comments and feedback, which has caused CFB to pull that package and re-examine it in its entirety. It was determined that in the best interest of implementing Health and Safety Code 8726.2 and to try and provide a more streamlined regulatory package for the multiple levels of review of this complex and technical topic, CFB will be withdrawing that package and expect to refile by the end of July, if not sooner, depending on the discussions today. Although all comments are accepted at any time, to try and streamline our conversation a little bit, I'm recommending that we address one section at a time, starting with the text in section 2334, Unit Trust Conversion Application. Then we'll move on to the application itself, and then we'll move back to the regulatory text for the remaining sections. I will now begin sharing my screen so that the text can appear on the screen for 2334. So just give me a moment to do that, and we can open it up. And share. One more click. Okay, can I get any feedback that my screen is being shared?
We can see it.
Okay, wonderful. You will notice my head being turned to the left a little bit. I'm using a larger screen than what my camera is on. So I'm sorry, you're going to see a lot of side profile here. I'll try and make this as large as possible because I know it is a little difficult. So this is the proposed language. As you can see here, we are adding a new article, title, and sections listed here. Article 3.5 will be the Endowment Care Fund Unit Trust Distribution. Today, we'll start with section 2334, Unit Trust Conversion Application, and we'll start with little a. Like I said, all comments are accepted. I'm just trying to streamline discussion for specific verbiage for specific sections. But again, if you'd like to open with any other comments, that would be absolutely fine. Okay, so I can now open it up for comment. Unfortunately, I can't see if anyone's typing comment, Shelley, so that will be.
It's okay. I've got it open. I've got the Q&A panel open. So if you'd like to make a comment, please look for that Q&A icon on your screen, that question mark inside of a square, and click on it. And then in the text box, you can just type comment, and that will let me know you'd like to comment, and then I can open your microphone for you.
And I'll make one more comment while we're waiting for someone to pop up. So I can say that 2334A, that is specifically related back to the statute for 8726.2B, 1 through 8. So it states in little b, 8726.2B, that an application shall be approved only if all the following conditions are met. And they give us 1 through 8 to ensure that is being met. So this is our response, this A section, in response to that section of the statute. So that's my comment there.
All right, and Darren Drabbing would like to comment. Darren, your line is open. Darren, can you hear us?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, Darren, I've unmuted you. Go ahead. And Darren, you're muted.
Done.
There you go.
Am I unmuted now?
You are. So just as a reminder to everybody in the attendee list, I will have to unmute you the first time because you cannot unmute yourself until I have done so. Once I have unmuted you once, you will then have control of your microphone.
Super. Thank you. Thank you. I just first want to make a comment that Gina and Cheryl and the team, thank you so much for making the adjustments that you made following our last conversations. It's obvious that this is a complicated subject and it's easy to get down rabbit holes, and I'm just very, very pleased at how much effort, and I know that this is not the only thing the Bureau has to deal with on a daily basis, but I know how extensive the work that you did to put in to get us to this point. So I just want to first by saying thank you. It's evident that you guys put a great deal of effort and time in this. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you for that, Darren. I greatly appreciate that too, and so does the staff. Absolutely.
So shall we? Are we prepared to just go item by item? Is that how you would like to?
Yeah. I mean, it's really if there's some overall general statements and so on. I mean, those are obviously fine. I was just trying to focus it, kind of line by line, the way that we write them here, to just focus our really get some specific questions answered for you, or specific revisions to words that you have prepared. But it's really an open discussion. So we're ready to just dive right in.
Okay. Well, I guess the very first comment I would make is number one, thank you for, and I know we're not going to, we'll go to the application later, but the very first one is the proposed endowment care trust fund instrument executed by the board of directors or limited liability company members of the Cemetery Authority. Making and I'm reading further down into section 6B1, where you ask for applicable documents. When a cemetery authority is holding the trust, there is no trust document with oneself. So is that anticipated in your in the application process?
So you're saying that as a cemetery authority, you don't have a trust document? You don't have a trust instrument at all?
The cemetery authority holds the trust. So they would, are you anticipating that the cemetery authority would have a trust agreement with itself? Is that because that's just what I was trying to ask, because if you're holding it yourself, you don't have a trust agreement with yourself. So I just wanted to put that out there. I assume that that's what you were talking about when you had provision 6B1, where you're asking for all the relevant trust documents. The proposed instruments are not available at the time. Then the applicant shall include the application and explanation why the documents are not available, and if applicable, the date they would be. So in the application process, would an explanation of that arrangement be acceptable in the application process?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember which one this points back to, specifically in little b. It's gotta be, and I think that's why it's written exactly the way it's written, where it says if applicable. If relevant trusts are identified by the Bureau on the notice, so I think that's exactly why it's written that way, because every single other cemetery has it except yours. So it's very difficult to write a section like that, being that this statute allows that. So
great.
Just for
I just want clarification on that. And the second question I guess I would have.
Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry, Darren. I'm sorry about that. Oh, okay. One, I think I found the section we were pointing to in 8726.2, subsection D. It's a small d. It says to assist the Bureau in making its determination, the Cemetery Authority, Board of Trustees, or Corporate Trustees shall provide all relevant trust documents, including a proposed trust instrument, if available. So that's why I wrote it exactly that way.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have a comment they'd like to make? Here's a question of format. Am I allowed to ask a question later on, or?
Oh, you could ask now. I mean, I can skip around. I have full control of this here.
Okay.
So if no one's like popping up and really anxious to talk about this section, we can always come back and forth. It's pretty open.
Super.
This is the moderator. We do have a couple other people that requested to comment. I'm not sure what section they're asking to comment on, however.
Right.
Okay.
Well, then I will mute myself and I will ask a question later, if that's okay, and I'll open the floor for others. Thank you very much.
And Esther, you're up. I think you have control.
Good morning. Thank you. I appreciate the chance to talk. So, Gina, staying with that 234 4A, I'm sorry, 4 and then B, all of those 5-year projection information that you guys are looking for.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
sorry, it splits between 2 pages, but I can go up and down as we speak.
no problem. So let's stay with the double I, the little two I's, the reasonable administrative expenses. So I'm just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page. So effectively, you're looking for the expenses of the trust on that double I, and then the expenses of the cemetery, but just as a percentage on your 3 little I's. Is that correct?
Right. The portion, right. I believe that is correct, yes. Can you, so you're stating that the double I is speaking to the administrative expenses where it's, attributable to generating income. And then the portion, you're asking if this is a percentage?
Yes. So I guess what I'm reading here is effectively, the annual report comes with all of the maintenance expenses in Schedule H or whichever one that one is. So the intent is to come up with estimates. Are you guys hearing an echo?
Yes,
No,
I was trying not to interrupt. So,
I don't hear it.
Gina, do you have more than one person in your office on separate connections?
No, everyone's on my screen.
Okay.
Carolina's is out in the other room in case she has to go and type something, but she can log out if you think that would help.
I'm wondering if that's where we're getting the feedback from. I'm not sure. There's definitely an echo happening.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I could hear it when Darren was talking. I don't hear it when Gina's talking, and I don't hear it now. So
Yeah, I haven't heard it at all. That's so weird.
okay.
I love IT. It's my favorite.
Okay, well, I'll keep going. I'll see how it goes.
Yes.
So I guess my question was, again, on the annual report, how we had the schedule where we have to provide the expenses of the maintenance expenses. So is the intent with this 5-year projection that we effectively just kind of project what portion of those expenses is going to be getting paid by that unit trust distribution?
Correct. And the portion of expenses, I believe it speaks to the amount, but I can see how it's not clear whether it's a physical amount or a percentage. You can see how that we'll need to look at that. That is a very good comment.
And Gina, this is the moderator. Just to let you know, the echo does seem to be coming from your side for some reason. You might want to turn your volume down. That could help. But also, if you just mute yourself while they're asking the questions, that will also assist us with that.
I'm having trouble finding my mute button while I'm sharing.
Yeah, you might not be able to. So maybe just mute. Do you have control of your?
I found it. If I scroll up, a little thing pops down. I got it. I will mute when they speak.
Okay.
Okay. So Esther, very good point on 3 little I's. I will make a note of that, and we need to add some clarity or discuss that section.
Okay. And then
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say our legal counsel, Christy Shields, has her hand up as well.
Sorry, that question got answered and I forgot to put my hand down. Sorry about that.
Okay. So can you guys just give us a little bit more of an indication as to what was the intent with all of these projections, and particularly how does that relate to another section farther down when it talks about in the reversion of the net distribution method on 2334.4, in which effectively allows the Bureau to tell a cemetery you need to convert back. Is it intended that you guys are going to be reviewing this every we put it down with the projections, and then what? I guess our concern is you're getting annual reports and things of that nature that clarify what is the return, where are all those expenses. So if the cemetery doesn't reach that return that is expected in this projection, is the Bureau able to come back and say, hey, I'm forcing you to revert back to the ordinary income?
Thank you for that comment, Esther. I think you bring up a very good point. This 5-year projection is solely to ensure that the fund will be sustainable, and this was a good thing for the cemetery. It's specific to this 5 years, and there's some things in here, for example, in little 1, that if it's not even expected to occur, sellout is not expected to occur before the 5 years. There's some things that we don't even need. When it comes to your projection, it's like I said, it's just to ensure that the fund can handle this transfer over to Unitrust. It's not something that we will hold you to for the next 5 years, as per the statute, it says that annually it will be reviewed, just like net income will be reviewed in the annual report. The annual report, things come up during the 5 years. You need a new roof, you need a whole new mausoleum. These things happen, and so those projections are just that. They're just projections. And I think that we've made that clear, but we can definitely go in and review that for clarity.
Yeah, could you scroll down? I appreciate that. Could you scroll down to 2334.4 to reversion?
Mhm. Sorry if it's making everybody dizzy here. We're almost there. Oh, of course I passed it. It's right. That's because it's at the bottom. So 2334 reversion, and that of course points right back to the statute, which is the reversion section, you guys.
Yeah. So what the heck is this?
A little bit more down.
I marked it on my piece of paper. It refers to 87. So on A, it refers to 8726.2E3. Actually, 8726.2B is the one I'm looking for. Where's that one?
6. 8726.2. Yeah, B3. So if you determine not to meet the original conditions of approval, the section
Right. Yeah, that's what gave us kind of the concern, that since it's talking about does not meet the conditions of approval, whether you guys can come back with anything associated to that approval, which was on that evidence of the analysis and all of that, to say, well, you're not meeting that expected return or anything of that nature.
Being that they're projections and it's an assumption, we would have to have an entirely new, if we were expecting to look back at another projection, we would need a new projection, because it's just that it's a projection for at the time of original conversion.
Okay.
If we feel you haven't made the current meeting the current conditions would then require a new projection, I would assume. But this is a very good comment, and I think that we should explore it a little further to make it clear that if you don't meet your projections, but the fund is still healthy,
Good.
that still means you're meeting the original conditions for approval. The original conditions for approval do not state that you have to meet a previous 5-year projection. So I'll have to discuss with legal on some technical language there to ensure that that's kind of safety net.
Great, thank you. And I'm gonna drive everybody crazy, but can you go back up to that page too?
Absolutely.
And we're looking for little 5, little v.
There it is.
There we go.
That consideration of tax obligations?
Well, it wasn't so much that piece. It's talking about the projected investment income, and it's just not clear. Again, on total return, it just looks for effectively that growth, that return of the portfolio. When people hear income, usually it goes with ordinary income. It goes with realized income on capital, realized capital gains. So we just wanted to make sure that when we're talking about projected investment income, that it is truly that total unit trust growth, that again, that return performance of the portfolio. And that's usually what we see also in the other states. I just care to know, did you grow by 7% compared to the 4% you distribute, that kind of thing. So I think that just have a little bit of different wording here. And I'm not too sure where you guys were going with considerations of tax obligations. So.
Okay, I think you again make a very good point where we could add a little more detail for the projected investment income and really specify that it would of course be within the total unit trust growth. So we're making a note of that also. I think we need to be clear there. When we talk about tax obligations, as you invest and so on, it's just an awareness of, as you're investing and pulling things out of certain investments or selling and this and that's just taken in. I think we just wanted to ensure to be overly clear that, all things need to be taken into consideration with this projection. Not everybody out there is going to be as fluent as some. So we wanted to be detailed. So this helps us with adding that detail. I appreciate that.
Okay.
I know you got more. Unless you have more on that one.
No, I'm good on that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
I hate to jump in here, but can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
So going back to the original, the prior question about whether things have changed, whether the Bureau would consider removing the approval. If you look at the proposed section 2350 that deals with the annual reporting requirement for endowment care funds, that would be the cemetery's opportunity to report anything that has changed since they got the approval. So the Bureau would then reevaluate whether the standards are still being met based upon that changed information. Right? And so that doesn't mean it's an automatic withdrawal. It just means that you would need to report that something had changed since the approval had occurred. The Bureau would then evaluate it to see whether it still meets their requirements, because subdivision E3 of 8726.2 requires the Bureau, or allows the Bureau to remove the approval if they don't meet the conditions of approval. But I think that you have to also consider the fact that the cemetery's conditions change, and that this provision allows the Bureau to analyze whether the conditions, meaning the goals and policy objectives of this statutory provision, are still being met.
Yes, very good point. Thank you, Christy.
All right, our next comment comes from Jerry Desmond. Jerry, I've unmuted your microphone.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Shelley, thank you. And Jerry Desmond with the Cemetery and Mortuary Association of California. A couple of comments and questions. One is when Darren and Esther and their comments are also speaking for the association as well. And there will be others who are participating as part of a CMAC team on this issue. So you may hear from Steve Schott or Curtis Cameron or Chris McKaylee as well. And together we're each talking about issues that we all have in common as the association. So to reiterate the opening comments of Darren Drabing, that CMAQ does appreciate the extra effort that's going into rewriting the regulations and to look at a very complicated matter. To also reinforce Darren's comment that we appreciate the cemetery authority being blended into the regulations and the application, and the need for some for clarity to be added in the subdivision up front at 2334. I think it's sub A1. As a follow-up to Esther's comments regarding the 5-year projections and the obligation, what that means in context, and referring to, and we are very aware of the, the statutory guidance in 8726.2 and subdivision E. And I would just, if it's a value in trying to, having that clarity of exactly, I think the way the bureau chief described it, a bit more clarity in the regulation would be helpful. And for example, we know that subdivision E3 talks about if the conditions of approval aren't met. A condition of approval is to provide the protection. It's not to meet the projection. And as described by the bureau chief, with an understanding that facts change and there's the annual report. So we think to be clear on that would be beneficial to all the folks that are that will endeavor to comply. And then I know in some of the previous, if I refer down to 2334 subdivision small c near the end of that section that talks about the submission of a completed application at least 90 days prior to the beginning of the reporting year. I guess we're projecting that will be hopefully 90 days prior to January 1, 2022, if the package is able to move forward, maybe with some emergency adoption and such, with not too many more changes. But I do want to note that in case there are some thoughts or for us to understand, I believe in some of the previous comments we've submitted, we have thought that because it has been, and understandably, but also frustratingly for some of the members, since 2017, when the original legislation passed, to 2022 is a 5-year period where the endowment care funds would be could have been converted a couple years ago to the total return methodology to assist with the long-term value of the funds. Is there a thought that's been given that for the 2021 year, that upon approval of an application that by the bureau, that perhaps that could be go back to the beginning of 2021 instead of initiating in 2022?
Jerry, thank you so much for that comment. We're bound a little bit by the statute for prior approval. It may get very technical and complex where distributions have been already made in 2021 and such. So we'd have to look into that more and really address that more. It is our goal, of course, that this is definitely available for the 2022 for those cemeteries that are on the calendar year, which is most everyone. And so I'd have to get with legal and have a little bit more conversations about that, because the statute is very specific where it says prior approval. So we'd have to look to see if there's interpretation there that we can see. But like you mentioned, like we all know, as soon as this is over, this meeting's over, we'll be back to reviewing all comments and getting it filed with OAL in a much more streamlined manner. So that is our ultimate goal, to get it through, of course, as immediate and as fast as possible. But I will have to look into that and get back to you a little more, Gary.
Of course. I think that's for me on this section. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it looks like Darren's next in line.
Thank you very much. And it's just one more kind of clarifying statement from what I think I've heard. And this pertains to the 5-year projection. And our concern is it's easier for us to probably project our expenses and so forth than a market outcome on investments. So our fear was that we would have to then project our market returns for the 5 years and then be held accountable for the market swings, and having the unit trust distribution methodology withdrawn from us based on a market condition that we didn't anticipate in a 5-year projection. So I guess what I hear you saying is that you will look at the issues that are within the annual report, and understanding that we'll have an investment policy statement that will have objectives and benchmarking, and to the extent that we are following what we say we're doing, we would still be in line even if the market took a drastic swing, which would affect not only the unit trust distribution individuals, but also the income distribution people as well. It would be a market nuance as opposed to an operational change. Am I making myself clear? That was one of our fears. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Darren. I appreciate that. Kind of echoing Esther here to ensure that a projection is not what's going to then be set in stone. It is a projection. It's part of requirements of prudent investor rule and so on. We're very aware that market changes and affects all of our cemeteries. It has for decades. As the markets have gone up and down over the decades. So that's a very good point. And again, like I said, we'll make sure that no clarity is needed in. We'll verify if clarity is or isn't needed in here, to really make that clear that in your annual report, that's your opportunity to say, hey, these market things change. This is now what we're looking at, and we'll look at that to make sure that's very clear for everyone involved. But I do see where you guys are coming from, saying, what happens, what if. So we'll definitely look at that to make sure that's not the case as the regulation is written.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Darren.
And our next comment comes from Curtis Cameron. Curtis, I've unmuted your line.
Great, thank you. Yes, Curtis Cameron, representing the Cemetery and Mortuary Association of California. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak and be a part of this gathering today. Just like Esther and Darren had mentioned, it's comforting to know that the 5-year projection isn't anything that's being used as a benchmark compared to what the actual performances might be in the coming years. But that being stated, I understand that the concern as far as moving to a unit trust method and looking at the overall total return of a portfolio and the importance of seeing what you're planning for that return to be and how you're going to be utilizing those resources. So I can understand now this 5-year projection that you're looking for in the application. Specifically, I'm wondering if this is to satisfy under section 8726.2, subsection A, item number 3, where you're essentially we're trying to demonstrate that we have sufficient knowledge and expertise in understanding and managing the unit trust method. Is that correct?
Very close. Actually, the 5-year projection more is referenced to 8726.2. B2, evidence is provided that the cemetery authority, board of trustees, or corporate trustee will invest and manage the trust under the prudent investor rule. So this is proof that the investment and managing of the trust is sufficient. The knowledge and expertise is referenced on the application itself with either the education, a certificate, a corporate trustee, that area there on the application. So the 5-year projection speaks to 2, and under little b, and knowledge and expertise is on the app, reference to number 3.
I see. I think that I just thought that it does actually complement the fact that
It does.
the organization does have an understanding of what this mechanism is going to do in the current year and the near future.
I completely agree. I completely agree that they would complement each other. This is really, like we call it, the proof is in the pudding, not necessarily, but we do not necessarily in knowledge and expertise if you don't know how to run this projection. So they do complement each other, but as the statute is written, we have to make sure we hit each and every one and able to explain to the Office of Administrative Law how we're asking for this section, how we're asking for that section. So that is why there's two areas, but I completely agree with you that it's a combination of everything submitted, not just education and the projection, but a combination of everything that kind of gives an overall view of how the cemetery is doing and the sustainability of the fund in general. So I appreciate that. That was very good.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and it looks like Esther has another comment. Esther, if you can unmute, floor is yours. Let me try unmuting you.
Okay,
How's that?
yeah, now it worked. Thank you. Gina, going back to the application, no, I'm sorry, to the application to 2334-1, the approval on page 3. A little bit more. Keep going, just a little bit more. Right there, to the actual approval. Right now, as stated, the cemetery provides all of the information, and there is really a no due date for the Bureau to come back with comments, questions. Do you need additional information, whatever it happens to be? Is there the possibility in here to include a time frame for within no more than 60 days, 90 days, the Bureau shall reply back to the cemetery authority, either with the approval or with the request for information? You're muted.
Trying to avoid that background. Thank you, Esther. We did go round and round trying to discussing that specific idea. We did put in that you must apply 90 days in advance, which gives us only 90 days to review anyone and everyone who applies 90 days before their calendar, their year, their fiscal year. So, however, the Bureau in general does not have timeframes that are in their regulations and statutes, and we have historically not had any issues with delays in applications or turnaround times. It seems that we've already kind of taken care of that by stating that you need to apply 90 days before you need to convert. So I know that's not in this section here. This approval section is mostly speaking to that once this section is specific to those that have been approved, that the approvals are, you will be receiving a written approval, and that it should become effective on your next reporting year. So that's specifically what that section is for. The 90-day section, of course, is up here, a completed application. Now, it shall be submitted 90 days, which we placed there. Now, if there's, of course, the Bureau is known to work with our licensees historically when they have deficiencies and so on. So that's normal for us to receive an application and give a call if we have a question. However, if the application is severely lacking, it will be returned and it will have to be sent back. That is in, let me find it. Anybody remember where that section is? And that's standard in other parts, 0.3. And that is standard in other parts of our, it's called the abandonment section. And that is standard in other parts of our law. In other parts of our act, excuse me. 0.3. So when we talk about an application that's been returned to the applicant is incomplete shall have 12 months to getting it back to us. And of course, it needs to be at least 90 days before your approval fiscal year. So we do have some timeframes in here speaking about abandonment and when you should turn it in, giving us plenty of time to get that through and answer any questions. But we are expecting that, with this regulation being as detailed as it is, hopefully all applications will come in as complete, and then we have that 90 days that's in the regulations already. So that's kind of our thought process there, but I'd be happy to hear, additional comments on that.
No, that sounds good. Makes sense. And I think the last one that I have on this one is on 2334 4C, when you're looking for satisfactory proof, if you have to revert back to the ordinary income method. You guys have some idea about how does that satisfactory proof look like? Is that just an acknowledgement, a board resolution, what?
Yes, that's exactly correct. It can be a new trust instrument if that's already made. A lot of times it's just an amendment to a trust instrument. It's just one page. So that's why we kind of left it broad, because it does specifically say that it can be satisfactory proof means documents or other written information. We just gave the option of including a new proposed trust instrument, as that may be easier for some cemeteries. But yes, that's broad for a reason. It just needs to be in writing to us.
But you're not looking for example, a change of assets or investment or anything like that quickly, right?
No.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
All right, and it looks like Darren is next.
Thank you, and I'll try to make this short. In listening to Curtis and talking about, I guess it's 8726.2 B2 as the evidence provided, and we're looking at that 5-year projection as helping being a part of that evidence. And I would suggest that the investment policy statement that is required to be provided will have, quite frankly, almost everything that you have been concerned about in the 5-year projection. It'll talk about your asset allocation. It will have the benchmarking. It will have the type of investments. It will have the controls involved in terms of that. So I think the Bureau will be satisfied with both the 5-year projection and the combination of the investment policy statement, which has everything else that directs the trust funds. So that was my only point, is that investment policy statement, which you will have to have, will be really the guiding principle in terms of what you can expect for performance. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that comment, Darren. Absolutely. I agree.
And I'm not seeing any other requests for comment right now.
Okay, why don't I, is everybody good with me pulling the app up? I can bring the app over now and see if we can always go back to the verbiage. There's nothing that says we can't go back to it. When we're done with the app, I'll specifically ask for questions, for the point 1, point 2, point 3, and point 4, and the reports. But maybe we'll spend some time here in the app. If you notice, we are opening an email. It is going to be preferred that this application be signed, wet signature, all documents gathered, and then scanned into this email address. This email address goes directly to the associate management auditing team that is assigned to Unit Trust. As you know, we were given a position, so we have a position specifically to assist with Unit Trust, getting it not only developed here today, but also ongoing, including annual reporting. So we have listed that there. instead of adding another an addendum or things like that, we reminded everyone right here at the top that they have to have turned in their annual reports. And then we are attaching to the application as a separate page the full section of the law of 8726.2, because there are additional documents, as we were just discussing with the evidence and so on, that are required. So the application is just kind of that letting us know who you are and everything like that. So that's kind of the intro. We go into the applicant or cemetery authority. This is who is applying. So it's kind of standard as our other forms. Your name, your title, you know, are you applying as which one, the name of the cemetery, the mailing address if it's different, telephone number, and then a primary contact person. Email address is optional, but I can't stress enough that it will help facilitate communication faster. Next section is the corporate trustee information. As you can see, it says if applicable, and this will meet the requirement for corporate trustee. Down here, individual trustee or designee of a cemetery authority. Again, we give two options for education experience here. This would be 20 units, and you can send us copies of original transcripts to the email. It's not going to be certified, sealed documents. You are attesting that everything you attach is true and accurate. So we do expect that, but we will accept copies. I think that will make it a lot easier for interested parties. Or instead of, as you can see, there's an or, instead of providing us any of that, if you hold a current license as these agencies, under these agencies, that takes care of that. Then there's just an attestation question that states if you've had the 2 years experience in, the past 10. These seemed as minimal, as we seem fit for education experience. 2 years, 20 units, or 2 years in a certificate should be sufficient. We speak to in the required attachments, we speak to section 2334 of the attachment so that the application doesn't become longer and longer and just repeats the regulation. So we just kind of refer you there. And then we have all the signatures. So as you can tell, this is much simpler because we're asking for the evidence provided in the projection and your trust documents and so on. The application has become solely focused on who you are, signing, and meeting the education experience question for individuals versus corporate. So I'll go ahead and open it up for comment now to see if anyone has any questions. I'll mute myself.
All right, and Curtis, you're first up.
So I need some clarification on section C as far as the experience requirement, educational and experience requirement. And that is, first off, and I don't know if this is just a typo, but you've got 2 number 1s in there as far as under at the top of the box 1, and then at the bottom as far as experience 2. Noticing, going back to your previous version of this form and looking for the education and experience requirements, the way it was written before was essentially if you were held some sort of license, a CPA or investment advisor license, that was good, or you had basically the minimum business requirements as far as education plus an experience of working with the unit trust method. Now, essentially, you've basically blended in whether you're licensed or not, or you have the minimum business education requirements are essentially equivalent, which I don't necessarily think they're equivalent, but maybe it's because I have a vested interest in that. Sorry, but the second portion of it is the fact that you're looking for work experience in the last basically 2 years of work experience in the last 10 years of investing, managing an endowment care fund, which is specific to cemeteries, under the unit trust method here in California, which we haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. I know other states in the nation actually are managing their endowment care funds under the unit trust method, but we in California, that's what we're here working on today. So it seems to me that this is an extremely high hurdle to get over, to document essentially you whether have the education and experience to manage such a fund.
Yes, Curtis, I greatly appreciate that comment, and it's something that we have discussed in great detail, even when the laws were going through. I wasn't in this position when the first one went through, but it was definitely talked about when the second one went through that this would be difficult. But we are specifically reiterating the statute itself in B3, sufficient knowledge and expertise in and investing in managing the ECF under the unit trust. So we're
Right, except in the first version, you were basically saying that if you were a licensed professional, it was assumed that you had that expertise. Now, essentially, you're saying that any sort of licensed professional does not have any of that expertise.
I think that was an error, and that's something that we may have corrected, because in this statute it says knowledge and expertise. It's separate in the statute. We need to collect it separately. I'm not quite sure how just knowledge would prove to the Bureau that you have expertise in what the statute requests. Our hands are a little bit tied in this area. We had listed them incorrectly on the first application, which was another reason we had to do an overhaul here to make sure that this is very clear and that it points directly back to B3. Otherwise, we would get questioned on it as it went to Office of Administrative Law. So in order to keep it clear, we just had to copy what the statute was worded. Your experience doesn't necessarily have to be in California. You could have had unit trust experience, maybe doing a cemetery in another state, to assist with those that are here in California, but that's not specified. However, we're a little restricted here on how to get both knowledge and expertise kind of checked off the list here. But we are open to suggestions and more comments on that for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Again, thank you, Curtis. Thank you. We have more comments on the application itself?
We do. Next up is Darren.
Thank you. Yes, just to kind of clarify and also reiterate what Curtis was saying. So we have, and I'm reading, and I see the box that we're in here, where the legislation actually says the Cemetery Authority Board of Trustees and its corporate trustees demonstrate sufficient knowledge and expertise in investing and managing endowment care funds under the unit trust distribution methodology or method. So that's got it. We're all in a quandary then, right? So unless you are running an endowment care cemetery in another state that accepted unitrust, and you've managed that in another state like Iowa, then you could come over to California and be one of our trustees. So I see that it's kind of a unsolvable rubric here. We are not allowed to invest under unitrust, but the way the legislation is written, we have to prove that we can, or we have. So that's, and I didn't understand the boxes below, the yes and no. either because it's required, because you have to you either have to have the education, the certification, either one of those, plus these 2 years of managing under unit trust. So if no one in California can get that, I'm not sure why the boxes yes or no are there. And do you have any thoughts, or do we have to change the legislation? I mean, because I see how you're boxed in here. You have to say that you've got it because it's in the legislation. But if it's unobtainable, like I said, unless you had to hire someone from out of state who had experience in unitrust distribution of an endowment care fund in one of the 10 or 12 states that are doing it, those are the only people that could get to do it. Is that how that washes out?
That's the way I see it, Darren. I know we
Yeah.
provided a lot of technical advice on this area. We were a little bit concerned.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know much about unit trust the moment I walked in, but I did see that this was kind of eliminating
Yeah,
Californians, unless Californians are working in other states, you know what I mean? So I
Right.
did see that. The boxes is just because you're certifying at the end. So it's telling us, you're saying it's for verification. You're checking that box. Yes, I have it. If it's
Oh.
no, I don't. If it's no, I don't have it, then the application would be incomplete. We'd send it back. We'd say, give us somebody else.
Got it. Got
So
it.
that's the only reason it's there. I didn't feel that we really needed you to, there's all kinds of ideas how to do it. I felt like this was just a very direct and simple way saying, yep, I got it. And then moving forward, you already have to attest that this is true and complete
Right.
and accurate. So I wasn't, I didn't want to get held up with real formalities there.
No, and
Again, that's why we're accepting copies and everything,
Right.
but without a legislative change, Darren,
I see that.
I don't know what to do here.
I see that because we're all boxed in by what's written here, and you're just transferring what you're obligated to collect. You've got to,
Yeah.
it says that you have to have 2 years of experience or years of experience in unitrust, which all of us in California who've been managing endowment care funds haven't been able to do. So
Yeah.
looks like we're going to have to figure that out on a legislative front in order to go forward from this, right?
I believe that would be, I don't want to say the only, because I can't imagine, I don't want to be boxed in either, but yeah, I would definitely say that is going to be the most recommended, easiest way, cleanest way, so that nobody's doing any underground regs and we don't want to get caught up in any way. So it would need a legislative change. That one
word
ending, it just should say endowment care fund instead of under unit trust, or
no, or
there
it could just say managing, managing endowments.
Right. So there's definitely some verbiage that we could probably work out for it, in next session. We'd be more than welcome to provide any technical advice on that next session. But this is where we are today, and yeah. Now it doesn't mean that any cemetery authority can't bring in, one person into their group to meet this for 2 years and then change somebody. I know that's difficult. I know that may be costly and not cost efficient, and I'm not quite sure business wise if that would work for everybody, but we're really going to have to think outside the box to meet this statute to ensure those funds can get over.
Right. And I see the quandary that you're in, Gina. It's like you've got it's right there, it's written, so it has to be here. But the workaround of actually trying to hire someone who is managing endowment care funds in another cemetery in some other state to come over and to manage cemetery. I mean, that's not it is one way to do it. That is true. It's probably and it is doable, I reckon.
I reckon. Yeah.
But I think what we're seeing here is that you're stymied by having to use these particular words because they're written in the legislation, and unless we change that, it looks like we're all kind of dead in the water here until that gets changed, because no one can meet this.
Right.
I see.
Right. I'm not agreeing to no one can meet that because I'm not saying right to that, but yes,
Oh, I understand.
we
Well, no
but
one
we are in a quandary.
no one who currently manages endowment care funds solely in the state of
Solely
California can make
Right.
that claim.
That is
So,
that is true, and that is definitely a hurdle that the Bureau is not putting in. It is a legislative mandate, and it's as far as we can go.
see it. Yeah.
Yeah. If we don't add it, there's Office of Administrative Law may kick it back, and we
Sure.
don't want to delay. We can't
No, it's got to
put
be
anything in
accurate.
that would
It's got to be accurate. So that's what I'm saying. It looks like we're going to have to figure out legislatively how to modify this so we could go forward doing it in the future.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Great. You're welcome. Thank you.
And it looks like Jerry is next.
Hello, Jerry Desmond again with the association. Just following up on on this conversation and this point, and looking at the statute to just offer. And I know it would take additional dialogue. We appreciate the effort that's now being made to move expeditiously and to get the regulatory package into the formal process. With the statement of reasons, public comment period, and all that different work, and get it to OAL, to take effect on as soon as possible. And if the Bureau and the department do confirm that determination here on subdivision B3 as worded, is indeed the obstacle that can't be overcome with regulatory language, our association would be interested in having discussions, with the department and the legislative unit to see if there might be an opportunity for a quick legislative fix to this provision, so that we're not prohibiting, those trustees who have experience that's just California based, working with endowments and endowment care funds today, or endowments that they're not aced out originally, and we have to wait for a longer fix. I know it would take work to accomplish that, but if we could, and we will, thinking about it as an option coming out of this meeting, to quickly initiate a conversation with the department's legislative unit to talk about a potential remedy and see if there's something that our association could be proactively work on in that regard. We were the sponsor of the original legislation, and so perhaps that gives some voice for us if we're trying to work out a fix. That's all.
Yes, Jerry, I appreciate that. As I made myself a note, as a Bureau, I was going to direct you to Ledge, as if we were to do the bill, it would have to get governor approval and so on, and that could take a while. So any assistance, of course, we are available and there to participate and assist in any way.
And Esther, it looks like you are next.
This is just a format kind of question. On the signature of the certified trust statement, I know that you're asking on the cemetery authority, it says authorized representative for the corporation, but then at the same time, we're having the president and the vice president. Just wondering if there was the option of making it just any authorized representative. Like, for example, the annual report asks for the two vice presidents or whatever, or is it forced to be that president's signature and vice president's signature?
Sorry, I was muted. So the question is, are the only authorized representatives for a cemetery we will accept be president, vice president, or managing member or authorized signer? That's a very good question. I'll have to look into that. I'm not quite sure if the Bureau is really going to be overly specific as who we have sign it. We may, name of officer and title might be okay. The person who is applying, excuse me if I make everyone dizzy here. The person who's applying up here is the primary contact, or the name here would be most likely the best person to then sign. We can assume it would be the same person here. The problem is that the way the statute's written, you can apply as a cemetery authority, but a person has to have education experience, and a person then has to sign, same as a corporation or an LLC. So it brings in, who do we have sign at the end of this form? Who is going to be responsible that everything on this form is true and correct? So it's really the person who's responsible for sending in this form and has that authority to send in this form and responsibility. So I'm definitely open to discussions on changing this section here of president and vice president. That's a very good comment.
Thank you. And going back to that section C that we keep talking about, is the understanding that then as long as you have one individual, one trustee, or one designee, that's sufficient for this? I just need one?
Yes, the statute. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step over. Yes, the statute just states that you have to demonstrate sufficient knowledge and expertise. The Bureau has determined that one person is sufficient, especially in the individual trustees where there's only 3. Taking that in mind, they just bring in one person, or if it's one of those 3, should be sufficient. Yes.
Okay. And my last one, just formatting again on the corporate trustee on the last page. Are you interested in having like a title somewhere in there? That's just.
I'm sorry, you cut out just a little. Interested in what again?
Go down. It's on the signature on corporate trustees. We just have the signature, the name. I didn't know you wanted to type.
I'm sorry, you cut out. You said just have the name. Should we also have what?
Do you want to have a title?
Oh, very good.
Signature on the name. Yeah.
Title for corporate. Thank you. Very good comment. Thank you.
And not seeing any other requests for comment right now.
Gina, you're muted again.
Oh my gosh, I talk too much. The muting and unmuting. Okay, so because at the beginning I mentioned we're going to go section by section. I know we kind of jumped around, but I just want to make sure that we get to each and every one of our sections here. So the next, we did speak very briefly about 2334.1, the approval. This is specific to an application that has been approved. We're pointing back to the statute and kind of copying the verbiage again, just to add clarity. But really, the purpose is to say that we will be providing written approval, and that the conversion method shall be effective the first day of your reporting year. So, first day of your next reporting year following approval. Does anyone have any additional comments on approved applications? Okay. Well, hearing none from Shelley, I will move on to denial. Denial of a unit trust. The denial is is pretty simply stated, not simple, but simply stated in the statute. So this section is really providing detail on how a denial would go. So we shall deny if you don't meet the original conditions, which we've kind of spoken about as not holding you to the projections, but that if there are changes in the market, and we'll look at if language is needed for clarity there. The next one is also restate from the code any conditions described in subdivisions A through F of section 7613.9. That's also just a restate from the statute. If you haven't provided all relevant documents to section 2334, those are how we can deny. And then there's the written notice of denial. So this is informing you how we will provide you a written notice. And this is the option to appeal for an informal office conference to discuss the denial and why it was denied. So although there's no, the statute doesn't call for, you have to have an appeal. This is something that obviously right here, government code section makes us do, not makes us do, but provides the stakeholder provides the licensee an option. And so we have to include it in our regulatory writing. So there's that for denial. That takes care of denial. Does anyone have any questions about the denial or the informal office conference process? It's pretty standard writing from our other sections of law. Okay. Next is abandonment. Again, this is also reiterating another section of our law. The abandonment date is determined by the date that we return an incomplete application. So if we have received an application, it's severely incomplete. If there's no response, we actually just return the application in its entirety, listing what deficiencies are, and then that's when the 12 months will start for the abandonment of that app. So that licensee will have 12 months to get any additional documents together, or a trustee with knowledge and experience, whatever it is, give them 12 months to get back to us. If it's abandoned, this is also very standard. If it is deemed abandoned after this 12-month time period from the date of return, it will be considered abandoned, and the applicant will need to reapply in its entirety with all new documents. So there's that. Does anyone have any questions about abandonment? Pretty standard stuff. Oh, this one's much bigger. Okay, so we'll move on to reversion. And please type in comment at any time to kind of cut me off. I have no problem with that. So reversion. I completely understand the thought process that reversion may not be in the best interest of all funds. This is not something we're doing as punitive for not meeting the projection, as we've stated before. This is if we see something obviously severe in a fund. So the first talks about how we may require, we'll provide you notice that you need to revert, and that we may require you to do so, and that we may require proof of that, as we kind of discussed earlier. You have 7 days to provide a satisfactory proof, so on. Talks about what your effective date should be, and if you do not revert, even though we've told you to, it would be considered unprofessional conduct. And if you want to reapply, there's nothing that's stopping you from reapplying from a unit trust. Once you've had to revert or you voluntarily revert, you can reapply at any time. So, which will be then considered. So this is reversion. We hope not to have to use that too often out there. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the reversion section? And we talked a little bit about it. The very last section of Endowment Care Fund Report, section 2350, we just added a B to that. We've added a little bit of clarity in A because we've had a lot of questions over the years from licensees with A. So A is an opportunity for us to use updated language and really update this section to be more clear and efficient for our licensees. B, of course, is the new section, the new part. You shall provide us anything that has been changed and as part of the normal annual report. So not too many changes, because as we've all discussed, the annual report really does provide us with a lot of that, with all of that information that we'll need annually. Of course, as we go, we may see more things and need revisions. You know, this program's not off the ground just yet. So, but this is where we are today. Does anyone have any questions on that section, or really in the language or application in its entirety?
We have a comment from Darren. Darren, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hopefully one for the very last time, I hope. Going back to the reversion on paragraph C, just is there any thought of maybe giving more than 7 days? I'm just thinking of trying to get a board together for a perhaps a unanimous consent comment, and I was just hoping that maybe consideration could be even to 14 days or something like that, just to give a little more breathing room to actually engage a board and get a document drafted and sent, signed, and delivered. It seems kind of tight, but I know hopefully it'll never happen, so I don't want to spend a lot of energy on it. I was just thinking the 7-day turnaround is kind of tight administratively for people, but that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren, for that comment. I see where you're coming from there with the 7 days is tight. The 7 days is actually starts after the 60-day time period. So it's after the 60 days has passed, because we're going to tell you you have 60 days to get your everything in order and revert to net. You know, that means establishing those new, those maintenance funds and all those things that you need to do under net. So it's only when we have requested proof that you've done it.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep, so it could be 67, but even so, you know, I'm going to still take your comment under consideration, because I don't know if 7 days, that, you know, it's not something that's set in stone. So, but it is after the 60. I just want to provide clarity there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you for your comment.
And Curtis, you're next.
Hi, yes, thank you. One last question, I hope, and that is going back to the application. And I'm thinking through the paperwork as far as converting from the net investment distribution method to the unit trust method, and under the net investment income method right now. We have things set up like the maintenance reserve and the investment loss reserve, which under the unit trust method, essentially the only thing that you'll have is a maintenance reserve. And you make note of that under, let me make sure I get this, section 2334. It is under it's under 6. Sorry, that would be A6. In the last sentence, you talk about that the beginning balance of this maintenance reserve may include the prior year's ending balance of the reserve for future maintenance, meaning the old maintenance reserve from the net investment distribution method could be the starting point for the new maintenance reserve under the unit trust method. And my question pertains to the investment reserve loss. I would presume that the balance of the reserve loss would also go into funding the future maintenance reserve in the unit trust method. Is that correct?
So that was definitely a big discussion here at the Bureau, Chris. I appreciate you bringing up that comment. Thank you for that comment. The statute does not mandate that. So that's why we have here this last section where it says the beginning balance of this reserve may include the prior year's ending balance, is to provide guidance to all cemeteries that may not know where they should move what. And this would be an easy way to then determine if you ever had to revert, how to then fill that. It's really up to the trustee who's managing the fund, or whoever's managing the fund, to determine where that reserve for loss bucket goes, because it doesn't exist anymore. So we will need to know where it went, but it's not required that it become part of the future maintenance. You know, the statute is vague on where it should be created. We're referring to 8726.2B5. A reserve is created for the Endowment Care Fund, for use when the Endowment Care Fund has inadequate funds for full distribution, as described in C. So it says you may set a portion of the unit trust amount for the reserve, but it's not a requirement. So that's kind of where we are. We wanted to be able to provide guidance on what they could start it at, but the principal losses bucket, I know we call it bucket over here. I'm sorry, that's not the correct term. I know it's not, but that would be more fit maybe in the unrestricted funds category, like unexpended income would be a suggestion, where we were pretty much thinking where that would have to go. So that's why we provided a roadmap here, but again, the statute doesn't mandate that. So, but we did want to provide licensees with where they could start for some assistance there.
So
That makes sense.
I'm a little confused because as far as under the unit trust method, I don't see that there would be any unexpended income as far as money that was intended to be distributed but wasn't distributed, right?
Sorry, formally unexpended income. So it'd be kind of like a unrestricted funds was more where I was going with that. Sorry, I misspoke.
Oh, I see. No, I see. I don't have to deal with that fund, so sorry. You're absolutely correct. I would have thought that all three of those funds would roll. They may, based on the cemetery authority or the trustees, they may decide to start the maintenance fund with those ending balances.
Right, that's correct. And we were hoping that would be the case, as more of a mandate, just to ensure that there's this fund, because it does say that a reserve fund is created, so there has to be, but the statute is not specific as to what needs to be in it. So you are correct.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, I think I've gone through each section and the app today on the WebEx, but I would like to open it up still for any overall comments, additional comments, questions. If we need to go back to a certain section, I'd be happy to. I think if anyone has anything else.
Looks like Jerry is up first.
Maybe as we get closer to the end, it's just a couple process questions on time frame, knowing that the effort everybody is endeavoring in the Bureau and department to get this to a formal regulatory proposal. In case we have other input or suggestions or other members of the public do, is there an expected time frame for us to conclude input?
Yeah, Jerry, thank you for that. That's a great question. We want to start our departmental reviews like by next week. So if we could get any other comments, I'm available on the phone. If we could, talk through anything else as soon as possible, I would greatly appreciate it. We've already been working on the eyesore, but of course we can't finish that until, all of this is done. So then we have budget review, departmental review, agency review, and then file. So we would like to get, our timeline is very tight here. And of course, there's the 45-day comment period, which I would hope we can work out these comments here, but of course, there's always that opportunity there. But anything we can work out beforehand, before filing, I would really appreciate that to be as soon as possible. I know.
Thank you. Sounds
Okay.
great. Yeah, sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, great.
I'm not seeing any other requests. And you're muted.
I'm not quite sure, being that it was posted until noon. Oh, or until conclusion. Okay. So should I give us all a few more minutes? And if anybody thinks of a comment right now on my computer here, it says 11:35. I'll give us 5 minutes to sit here quietly and comfortably, see if anyone has any other comments, and then I can conclude business. But I just want to give that 5 minutes to see if anyone else has something, that may occur to them as we're all reviewing this. I can bring up that we have a advisory committee meeting later this week, 24th. On the 24th, same time, between 10 and 12. It is a WebEx meeting, so it'll be in this same format. I believe we should be able to go back in person after, I believe, September, but we'll see how that goes. And we can start meeting in person again. That would make these kinds of events a little bit easier, I think. So we'll just sit here. Unless anyone wants to say thank you and goodbye, you're more than welcome to log off at any time, of course. I guess I would like to say a final thank you to all the commenters, and especially the commenters and anyone who has joined us during the course of the meeting. This has been, I think, a very good meeting, a very productive stakeholder meeting on this reg package. I'm looking forward to it moving on. So I'll give a couple more minutes.
Hey, Gina. It's Esther again. I know that Darren already stated, but we could definitely tell that you guys had taken this apart and put a lot of thought into both the new application and the new form, and the industry truly appreciated. I think you guys could tell our level of frustration at the last call, and this is huge for us. So thank you from all of us on the phone. We very much appreciate this.
Esther, I appreciate that comment. More than you know, it has definitely been up and down with this reg package, but I think that last call was necessary, and I think that it helped us really reevaluate all the way around. We had some amazing help in our legal department. I have an amazing auditor and regulatory staff and management team, so this was definitely a learning experience. We, of course, it was not perfect, but we hope that we're getting there now. So thank you, Esther. Okay, Shelley, no more comments there?
Just several thank yous, good jobs,
Oh, that is awesome.
and much
Thank you, Heather.
appreciation for the information.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. It's 11:38. I will go ahead and close the stakeholder meeting. I just want to say thank you, everyone, and I hope everyone here today will also be at our advisory committee meeting on the 24th. You can get that agenda and that WebEx link on our website. So everyone have a great afternoon, and we got some work to do. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Are any other participants on? Just Chris. Okay. Brianna. All right, shutting down. Thanks, Shelley. Thanks, everyone.
Welcome.
Bye.